Okay, we're on.
Okay, we're on. Hi, Connie.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank
Uh,
you for meeting with me. This is going to be
oh,
fun.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Yep.
So, we're both sitting in very far away places. I'm in a field in Idaho, and you're in California,
I'm in a meadow in California, Northern California.
and we're able to meet.
That's modern era for you.
That's modern era. So, that brings us to our question. Why is awakening difficult? Why do people think it's difficult?
Yeah, what makes it difficult, Connie? What do you think?
What makes it difficult? It's just got to be our conditionings. I think it's just because we've been told
Mhm.
that something's majorly wrong with us. We've been taught to be divided since the day we were born.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that native teachers say that indigenous people are from the day they're born taught that they're connected. And so they stay connected. We're taught that we're not connected.
That's right. It's mass hypnosis. I mean,
It
conditioning is
is.
another word for it. Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's like it happens to you when you're such a small child that you really don't have the capacity to uh, fight against it or question it even at all. Although I think all children kind of have an idea that they're being lied to.
Hmm.
That's why even 2 year olds are angry.
Mm. All right. Yeah, why
Right.
else be angry?
Why
Well,
would a 2 year old be angry?
Well, they're individuating, which is part of the whole journey of life, which I don't think is a mistake or part of the conditioning. I think individuation is sort of a natural kind of part of being human, but it doesn't need to lead to separation. I feel like we can be individuated. We are individuated. I'm not you, you're not me. So there's something individualish and still be in union, remain in union, like the beautiful individual tree is its own unique being, and it doesn't see itself as separate. So I don't think that has to be. So the individuation piece, oftentimes when children are two or so, they go through that this is mine, me, and practicing no, because they're learning their boundaries of them, of who they, what is this and what's that, and what is good for them and what they want. But it doesn't have to be this, like you just said. That's so curious about being angry. I didn't really have angry children. I'm not saying that if someone does, there's something wrong per se that if someone's doing. But I'm just thinking back, my kids weren't angry. They definitely got individuated, but they didn't have to push back.
Right. They
Yeah.
didn't have to push back. Well, that's so interesting because, and so I'm just always trying to find a new way to talk
Hmm.
about awakening. So I like to just go in lots of different directions. But um, if this is a good direction to go, then it means that the process of awakening is kind of like reparenting yourself.
Hmm. I love
And,
that.
and we can't, but instead we try to think of awakening as something that a full grown adult is sitting there on their cushion trying to do.
Hmm. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. See, this is why we wanted to talk, is that we're
Right.
bringing our own unique pieces. Yeah. Definitely. It is like going backwards to reclaiming something that got stunted, which is
Something that got
when
stuck.
losing self-connection happened long ago. So
Right.
it seems like one would go back to orient around a time where there was still wholeness, a sense of wholeness enough, because what otherwise, we wouldn't be longing for wholeness if we didn't already have the sense. So when did it get lost? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, if you kind of think that it got lost that far back, then you get the sense of the depths you need to go to unravel yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it also is bringing up in me a big feeling of compassion because you you can't blame your parents for doing that to you
No.
because that was done to them. And it's like and it wasn't just your parents that did it. It's the whole society works on this
Mhm.
algorithm of separateness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's a conditioned virus, right? It's a virus in a
it's
way.
yeah,
Or
brainworm.
whatever you want to say, but it's like catching a bad cold, but it doesn't go away. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, like this is the way it is, that we are separate. And so it's like that's the paradigm that is being imprinted.
Right. Right. Oh, well, then it's so good because it's like people wake up all the time. I mean, there's really so many awakened people. Not all of them are posting YouTube videos or putting on retreats or gathering, disciples. I think there's people everywhere. And so
Mhm.
the people who manage to overcome the virus, right? Just become healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess, that's something I'm not sure I totally agree with you on, that people are waking up all the time. Maybe people have ahas and understandings that they're not really separate, but for it to be what I call abiding, to where it lives
Mhm.
here and it's through and through all areas of life, to me, that's the deepening of awakening. So that journey to where it doesn't ever get dislodged. It's not like when we're going through something hard, or when we're tapping into some pain inside, right? Or going through
Mhm.
health crisis, whatever it is, that separate self sense is no longer there, and it doesn't resurrect. You know what I mean? So
I know
to
exactly what you mean. And that's a great point
Yeah,
because you have to go completely into the naturalness of it, the ordinariness of it,
yeah, right. Have it be through and through, right?
through and through. That's a good way to say it. And so many people do have an experience and then come back out of it.
Yeah.
But those experiences are still really valid.
Oh, it was my experience too, to have the experiences and come back out of it, right? It
Hmm.
was, it really helped knowing. I mean, now it's abiding and been for a good while, but it really helped me orient as to what's real, what's true and real, even if the separate self would resurrect and believe, somehow hijack awareness that there
Yeah,
really is a
yeah,
divide, that we're divided and all that. Just knowing that we're that there's something more true that is accessible, even if it comes and goes. It just changes one's life and the way you live life, don't you think?
yeah, yeah. And for me, it was more like I knew something was wrong with my brain, with my conditionings. I knew that my thinking process was wrong. I knew that I had been taught that what so much of what I was taught wasn't true. I knew that was the case.
Hmm.
And so I was just always I was looking for what's true, what's natural, what's a natural human being like was my journey more. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't, so I didn't really have what you would call like ecstatic spiritual uh, experiences, but I had times where I'm just like, oh, look at that. That's true.
Mm.
Oh, look at that. That's true. And it's like, oh, that's a lie.
Yeah.
That, and then so my ability to like see these things.
In yourself, like when you were like vibrating, in a truthful way, is that one way? And
Well, like little tiny things. Like I remember one time, so spiritual teachings tell you you should never be angry and you should always be good, and stuff like that, right? And so I'm sitting in my house and I look over and a little mouse runs across the floor. And the mouse stops and looks at me, and just I could just see the fear in its eyes. And then it ran off. And I'm like, you should be afraid because I'm going to kill you. I don't want mice in my house. And I just went, oh, there's a natural being that's afraid and not worried about being afraid and totally legitimate about being afraid. And so at
Beautiful.
that moment, I stopped trying to manage my fear, shove my fear down, be
Wow.
better than my fear.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Yeah, that's incredible.
Right.
Exactly.
But it wasn't ecstatic. It was more like, oh,
Yeah, clarity, clarity about truth that things are what they are, and there's no need to push it away and look at something that a mouse who doesn't have a separate self sense is just exhibiting so naturally without trying to manipulate or
right.
change or
Except
resist.
it was going to do every single thing it could do to make me not catch it.
Well, that's yeah, exactly. And it's like it's running on instinct and it doesn't have that observer inside that says it shouldn't be there. Like
Shouldn't, right. It didn't
that.
have a shouldn't.
So how to be with an observer, Connie? We were talking about
Uh-huh.
how awakening and living truth. Really, we wish it was simple and easy because it's our natural state, what they call the natural state. It should be natural. Um, you know how when the 2-year-old or whatever, they're individuating
Yes.
and they're becoming aware um, that they're aware of themselves. They don't know that yet, but that's what's happening,
Right.
right? So, and then that just being aware of itself in itself, does that have to lead to, and you were mentioning well, indigenous cultures,
Mhm.
does
Right.
it necessarily have to lead to feeling separate, or what is your feeling? What could happen with that?
Well, my feeling is that everything's unity, right? We just know that logically, even. But the details of it are so deeper than we want to think. And so you're individuating, but you're still part of this community. And when you're a child, of course, you're still part of your parents and you're part of your culture. And so if that child is in a culture where everyone is living in a sense of unity, then those people are naturally going to teach unity to the child.
Yeah, they're going to model it. They're not pushing something away per se because they think that um they don't have an idea. Maybe the people who were speaking about the I would imagine I would have to know more about the uniqueness of their culture.
Right.
And there's
But they wouldn't confuse the child.
they wouldn't confuse the child with uh yeah.
They would never lie to the child. We lie to children. Like we think that it's for their own good to just constantly lie to children.
Yeah, it's kind of like this disease, that is inflicted upon.
Our virus.
Yeah, because I was thinking about how when people from Europe came to North America,
Right.
and the Native Americans were living here. One of the things that just is so um, apparent of to reveal how separate they were feeling, the pioneers or whatever you want to call them. They put up fences.
Right. Yes.
And so, I'm looking at this beautiful meadow where I'm living, and there's fences, for the next property over there. And then there's more fences I see. It's just
Even if
natural
that's
now.
not a reason, even if they don't even have cows or
Yeah, and
just
some of it, some we do have deer here, but it's more like you say, it's more about separation of land. Mine, yours. And Mother Earth, what does she think?
right. Yeah, yeah.
She says, that's your all imagination.
Yes. Yeah. So I was thinking, it's like, okay, so how would it work to give all the land back to the Native Americans? Which of course, I mean, that's a complicated thought. Um, but basically, you can't give it back because if you like signed over the property deeds to tribes, all you've done is just change ownership. What you have to
That's
do is
right.
just simply stop owning it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Right. I don't think it's
That's
possible now, because
it's what?
I don't think it's possible because the virus of separation has gone into the whole
Oh,
idea of
right.
ownership and period. I think in the UK in the country they have some laws that people are allowed to walk on your property to go free
Yeah.
to other wherever they're going. It's this open kind of,
And you can camp.
oh wow.
There
Yeah.
aren't trespassing laws. So we were talking to this guy there because about our RV, we're like, well, we should go camping around Scotland when we were there. And he's like, there's no trespassing laws. You can camp wherever you want to camp. And so because of my conditionings, right, my society, and I said, well, I mean, I was kind of asking, well, do people behave themselves? And I said, well, you can't camp like right in somebody's driveway, can you? And he just looked at me and goes, no one would do that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, isn't it funny how we think we need laws so people think coherently? But let's get back to this interesting, conversation, which, about the simplicity, why awakening isn't simple. So we spoke about conditioning, and we spoke about it starting young and how it's imprinted, and then we have these laws and rules and regulations that just enforce it, me, mine,
Right.
thing.
Right.
So it really entrenches it. So when someone is coming back to themselves and are interested in this kind of conversation for themselves, what's in the way? What if someone's really sincere? What's in the way?
What if it's just the same thing with the land? Like you have to stop owning yourself.
Mm. Ooh, nice segue. Oh, I like how you we're making sense out of this conversation. See, it's not all for naught. Yeah. Ownership.
Stop owning yourself.
Yeah.
Although I think the biggest barrier is the traditions that we have around enlightenment that it's so difficult. And then all the stories that we also have about, you should be able to levitate and float and
Or you won't have any problems anymore. You'll be in a flow state all the time, and you won't get angry like the mouse, or
like
or
the
scared,
mouse.
scared, scared, or yeah,
Everybody
or
you don't need a
angry,
mouse.
or angry. Like these, we have human kind of, there's a human part to us that has feelings and sensing and all that.
Right.
We, all that can be liberated to be what it is, to simply be what it is, you know.
Stop owning the stories, maybe, because then you're able to explore them with curiosity. Because it's not like I don't have any conditionings anymore, just like that conversation with the guy about camping in Scotland. I'm
Mhm.
like, well, you can't just camp on somebody, because that was my first thought, that people will just run around and be rude. And he's just like, no one would do that.
Well, you know what? That's so interesting because haven't you? I have encountered so many sincere people who are afraid of dropping the sense of being a doer, the control, the
Yeah.
controller, because they're afraid that they're going to lose it or they're going to be, kind
Put
of
all
like,
their, yeah.
and also the stories from the past, of the wonderful saints and so on. Some of them went offline for a good while and had to be fed and where a type of diaper or whatever. It's like, oh, am I going to be a mother or father to my children? Will I be able to maintain my job? They have all these fears of not having ownership, what it would mean.
Right. I was talking to this Sufi sheikh guy, in the Rouhaniya, and we were having a conversation, and I was like, "Well, where is he stuck?" And then I looked at him and I said, "What would happen if you dropped the belief that people need to be punished?" And he went, like it had never occurred to him. And that's exactly the same thing you're talking about. Yeah, it's because we believe that the natural human being is bad, savagery. Uh,
Animal.
mm-hmm.
What separates us from so-called animals who are much more in alignment.
But
But
like,
yeah,
look at
but
the animals.
it's an old story, a
It's
very
not.
old story of, conquering Mother Earth, conquering the natural world, dominion.
Conquering yourself.
And that leads to the dominion here, that there has to be an overlord, an uber ego, making sure that this is holding it together.
Mm-hmm. Well, so just for everybody watching, uh, just so that you know, it's actually way better. Like
Oh yeah.
I remember the moment when I realized who I was. And it's like the ego thing. It's almost like a monkey on your shoulder, kind of always talking to you or something. And I'm like, oh, I'm me. And I, kind of like, I mean, I did kind of take control of myself. And I remember this ego thing went, thank you.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was like, oh my God, that was too big of a job for me. This
Oh,
separate thing,
exhausting. It's so exhausting.
exhausting, right? And so it was just like, thank you.
Oh, that is
And just
lovely.
dropped off, and no need to build that thing up again. So that's why it's permanent.
Yeah. Yeah, it returns back to where it came from, which is it never existed, to the
If
non.
you take the dam off the river, then the river just flows down.
Yeah, it's similar to something Ramana Maharshi spoke about he says allow the mind to fall into the heart,
Hmm.
rest in the heart, because the heart is an allowance. It's
Hmm.
it's unconditioned, so there is an unconditioned aspect to mind as well. But allow mind to rest and live from the heart. So it's not the overlord. It's not what's leading.
Right. That's not its job, and it doesn't even like it.
No, I think that's very well put. And so many crises and anxiety and self-loathing and, confusion
Fusion.
exists because there's something that's not really true that is leading the way versus than what we really are. And that hyper ego sense, or whatever you want to call it, that the one that thinks it needs to stay in control, it we're saying it's exhausting to the system because it's not resonant, it's not in sync with what's real and true. So there's out of alignment. So of course one would feel separate, and one would feel off kilter
Anxious.
and anxious and like we're living a lie, and it's not. There's some, because it's not true. It's not a real thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Lies are so complicated to maintain.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just be honest. Like, and I also say, Connie, be honest as much as possible, truthful. Be
Right.
truthful. It's not like we're meant to be an open book to everybody, but just be truthful in life. Be truthful to yourself. Don't betray yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Try to be truthful in life. And it really serves to come into alignment with what's true. They really go together.
You know what's a funny irony is that when I'm walking around in like regular life,
Mm.
go into this grocery store, I work on some political committees and we'll garden and we do just all sorts of things. It's so easy to just be true.
Mm.
But when I go to spiritual camps
Uh-huh.
or any sort of a
Well,
spiritual group,
you lead
the
the
dances,
dances of
it
universal
is
peace. Yeah.
so, you can't just be true. And so I have to constantly try to think, what are the rules of this group and how do I fit in
Mm.
these rules without, um,
Mm.
yeah, the rules are very, very, very
That's a
complicated.
shame because you'd
I
want that
know.
to be, that's what's leading, you know? That
Right.
truth is, I'm sure you are, as best you can. Um,
Well, but people constantly say things that aren't true and they're lies. And so it's like, well, do I say something about that or do I be quiet? And people don't like being challenged about their
well,
beliefs at
well, that's
all
the thing about being involved with systems.
with a system. Yeah.
With systems, I just there's some that are probably in alignment, especially with maybe not for me, but for the person who's in,
Hmm.
like, let's say Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism. Someone's
Yes. Hmm.
in that system, and it's an alignment for them, you know. It's really about finding, I mean, being honest about what's in alignment with oneself because we're also different. What's true for one might not be true for another,
Right.
you know? So what,
But
so
now you're back to our original question of why
yeah.
is it so hard? So why we have so many Buddhist groups, why aren't they all waking up? All the Sufi groups, you
Yeah,
know.
maybe you know more about that. I'm pretty outside of groups. I was just reflecting on being outside of a group the other day with a friend of mine, and I was speaking about it because that's just the way that life that I was born into, not being in a group. That's just that was supposed to be my path. Just off the map, off, no, just because there's been plenty of lifetimes, I feel. That's my personal experience. Everybody has, there's not a belief system where there's been plenty of paths that have been
Yes.
honored and followed that were helpful and supportive. But this time around, none, zero. I mean, still have to be part of culture.
Right.
But um yeah, it's like um I don't know where I'm going. Where were we? Where were we?
Well, yeah, so why isn't it easy? So my observation is because always in groups,
Mhm.
and you kind of said something about this once about the uh, science and non-duality people too. As soon as hierarchy starts happening, truth kind of seems to disappear for the people in the hierarchy, which is so funny because the regular people are really just fine and they're doing great and they're honest and they're true and you can talk to
Mhm.
them about anything. But the people that are in the hierarchy
Mhm.
become very difficult to deal with.
Well, I think human nature, it's like awakening. We were saying earlier, it has to penetrate and to be really fully abiding, to live here. It has to penetrate all the conditioning that is not in alignment with truth. There's a lot of conditioning that can stay, right? I prefer coffee over tea, kind of thing in the
You
morning.
should basically be polite. You should
Yeah, so
take
the conditioning that
yours. Right,
is not uh doesn't create division
right,
internally can remain and it's not harmful, right?
right,
But the
exactly.
conditioning that is still creating hierarchies and all that stuff, I'm better than you, I need to be one-upping you, I need to have more students than the other, these kind of like whatever. See, those things, it's like those roots have to get, the truth has to sink down and penetrate and really marinate and meet everything. All those even things that a lot of that comes out of survival that hasn't been faced, of what's kicking up a lot of that. I still got to be on top somehow, whatever field one is doing, in life,
Hmm. Hmm.
is the survival thing, it's survival. And not that, and because like the mouse, we're fundamentally want to survive, that's not the part I'm talking about. I'm talking about the part that divides and makes one feel like we have to one up somebody when it's not necessary, put a fence up when it's not necessary. You know what I mean?
And yeah, exactly. So, and it's the group that kind of lifts the hierarchy up. And once you start getting lifted up in this hierarchy, it's way trickier
Mm.
to self,
To what?
to see yourself, to know who you are, to, if you get into a spiritual hierarchy and you're not
Yeah.
already awake,
Yeah.
it's your brain worm, it's your virus
You
giving.
know, what helped me and still helps me, because it's not, and there's always more,
Yes.
more deepening. What helps me is what hurts. When
Oh,
something hurts, it hurts to be separate. And
yes.
we tell ourselves the truth that it just create that this division is hurting,
Hmm.
and it's likely hurting others, but it's hurting, it always starts here. It's like we're truth tellers, at that point, like we can't betray and lie ourselves. If we do, we get out of alignment, and that doesn't feel good. So there's a natural kind of um homeostasis that wants to be found, harmony that wants to be refound through truth telling. And it's like a humbling process.
Right.
Get humbled again. Do I really need to be holding on and onto this? Is even if it's coming from survival, it's something, what the survival piece could be real. One needs to make a living, whatever the survival.
Right. Yes.
But the humbling of how it's done, and what the energies around it are. Does it have to be done from scarcity and fear, or can it be done from just the truth is that one needs to make a living, or one needs to feed oneself, or whatever, feed the family.
Right.
So it's like this humbling process, uh, um, and sort of balance out. Are we really better than anyone? Are we really more deserving? Is that a learned thing? Is that coming from a survival thing that we don't have to buy it?
So in the native books I've been reading lately, the biggest teaching is never take more than you need. So
Mm.
like, do I really need more?
Yeah,
You
do I need more?
know? Uh-huh.
Yeah, you have to wonder about that. It's like the that's happening, as you know. It's creating so much imbalance. Not take more than what you need, and also what not more than what the earth can provide and
Right.
and
Yeah. And
sustain.
that puts you right into the moment. Do I need more right now? Do I? Yeah.
And that can right, that can be beyond just material. That's also,
Do I need more praise?
yeah.
Do I really need more love? Do I really need more um,
Mhm.
acceptance? Or do I really need a bigger dance circle?
And do I need that self, that separate self, which would be,
Do
do I need that coming back around? Do I need that
keeping in
to
mind that
function?
it so wants to have a break, that poor thing.
Yeah, so let's go back to the simplicity.
Right.
Simplicity. Um, the way I feel about why really, it's nice to hold space for it being simple, even if there's elements to it that are not simple because of our conditioning, right? But to always hold space for it to be simple is because what it is, we're holding space for what it really is, which is pure, um, natural, and simple.
Yeah.
So if we're holding space and remembering there's, and not to make oneself wrong about it, but there's a simplicity to this that is being pointed to. And that
Hmm.
is keeping an innocence alive, an innocence that one can return to and remember that it, it doesn't have to be complicated, because really the the orientation is that it's already here.
Right.
And so how much more simple could it be that if what we are, the wholeness is already here in the midst of one's life as it is. Wholeness is already here, so that means that doing anything is going to just cover it over.
Right.
Imagining it's not simple, imagining it's not here. It's just going to cover over what's just already always here, shimmering.
Always there. I remember I was at this dance camp and there was this one girl there that was so fake. And she was just fake love and fake praise. And she was dressed up all beautiful. And she was just, one of those. And she was, magnificent act. She
It
was
must
put
have hurt. I,
But what was so funny is I mean, she was going around. And so then we were sitting somewhere
yeah.
and I look over and I look at her and the whole facade dropped.
Mm.
And I'm just looking at her and I'm like, oh, there she is. And 2 seconds later, she,
Oh my gosh.
she fell asleep in her chair.
She couldn't
And
sustain it.
well, she was tired. I mean, we'd been doing really a lot of things, but it was just
Wow.
really interesting to watch how
Mm.
the process of falling naturally asleep. I'm not talking spiritually asleep. I mean, she needed to have a little break, right?
Mhm.
But how that process is like, boom, her true face showed. She
Mhm.
was totally her. And then she fell asleep. And then when she woke up, it was fun to watch. Because, when you sleep in a chair, you don't get really a very good sleep, right? So she wakes up, and it took her a minute to remember to put the thing back on again.
Well, that's why, like in Zen, they say meditate on your true face, your original face.
Hmm.
It's like I remember that when I was a teen, and then in my very early 20s, when I started to want to come back home, is that I never really could buy into, ever really buy into being a false self. It just hurt too much.
Oh,
And
yeah, I
I could
understand.
feel when I was more lost in the persona, they call it, you know,
Right.
lost in the persona. And there was something, I was aware of it even then. And that really helped. And I, maybe those who are listening now can maybe just tune in and notice during the day when one is staying home here and not in a persona, not wanting to be a pleaser. That's a persona. Not wanting to be just a good girl or do everything right. That's
Or
persona.
literally your outfit and your hair.
Well, all that is the accoutrements, right? But
Mhm.
it's feeling not good, like one isn't valued can be valued for what we are originally, what we really are. So
Hmm.
that's a manifestation, is the outer, just not feeling like at home enough, and also not feeling like we're lovable, like we are. But the thing is, it's not about what other people think in the end. It's about being finding that which is intrinsically lovable for itself, that intrinsically is whole. And when we come back home here, we're less more or less desiring to get that outer need met of being seen and valued from the outside. It can never satisfy. Like that outer personality, that persona can never, ever, ever find what it's looking for, the wholeness it's looking for in that way. So that's exhausting, right?
Exhausting.
That's exhausting. and it's an engine, a motor that's running that is just, they call it Maya, they call it, it's not
Yeah.
real. Yeah. And it hurts to see it, right? It hurts to be a witness to it because, and the only reason why it hurts is because we've known it in some way, for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. So it's really just relaxing out of that.
Yeah, it's relaxing and yeah, just being
Which
one.
is the simplicity. We want to do something, but when we just relax, then we're good enough.
When we're, yeah, exactly. Relax into, I think a lot of it's relaxing and not moving away from what's right here,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And my personal little uh I hate to call it a belief, but it kind of is
Mm-hmm.
that everyone can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right there for everyone. And we need you.
Everyone can do it, and we need you, and that that needs you. It's like it's calling you. Yeah. I think everyone
You-
can do it, Connie. What's
Huh?
that? What were you going
You
to say?
need yourself. I mean,
That's it.
yeah, yeah.
Everyone can do it, but you have to want it. You have
And
to want it.
believe it. Don't believe those stories that it's impossible.
Rarefied.
Rare, yeah. And that you're going to be this fabulous thing when you're
Yes,
done.
obviously not, right? No.
Obviously. We apologize for that.
No. I mean, look, that's the thing. That's dismantling beliefs over time. The beliefs get to be dismantled what this is going to be. Anything other than really, truly, fully, finally here.
Yes, yes.
Just be, or when it's here and things are passing through and feelings are passing through and good times, bad times, emotional states. But the thing is, there's nothing that's moving away from it. It's here.
Uh-huh.
It's just with always here in the midst of it. And that's
Well,
a
I,
grace.
yeah, I think so. I know that it's kind of coming to the time to end when I just feel like just laughing.
That's good with me. That's fine with me.
Okay, well, then let's definitely do this again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. And so
Yeah,
good to see you, be
it
with
is.
you, and your naturalness is so apparent. And it's so nice and relief. It's like being in nature. You know how something relaxes after a while because it's just being itself.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like with those who are letting themselves they're just themselves. It's just itself.
It's
It
fun.
it's there's something that just kind of relaxes and settles and goes, ah,
It's good to be a human being
hmm, hmm,
when just it's just relaxed. It's fun.
it's good to be a human being.
It's
And the
good.
being part too, right? Human
Yes,
being. It's good to be a
human,
human being.
good to be a human being.
So, all right.
Okay,
Bye,
I
everybody.
I'm
And
going to
Connie,
click
well,
on
we're
that.
just going to turn this off.
Yes.